Let's talk z-scores. A popcorn company finds their 1 kilogram bags have a mean of 1,040 grams with a standard deviation of 25. So what is the z-score for a bag weighing 975 grams? Well, the z-score is the value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. So that becomes approximately negative 2.6, which is about somewhere in here. So what proportion of bags will weigh less than that? Well, less implies area to the left. So you look at your z-score probability table, you find negative 2.6, and the number it gives you is 0.0047, and that is your probability. The tallest jockey to win the Kentucky Derby was Johnny Sellers at 5'7" ¼ in 1961. Mr. Sellers was taller than what proportion of men? Assume men have a mean of 70 inches and a standard deviation of 5 inches. Okay, so 5 feet is 60 inches. So Johnny Sellers was 67.25 inches. So the z-score would be his value minus the mean over the standard deviation, which is approximately negative 0.55 here. Now, so if this is Mr. Sellers right here, everybody to this side is shorter than him, so he was taller than all of these blue people. So what proportion is that? Well, if we look at our probability table at negative 0.55, we get 0.2912. So that's the proportion of men that he's taller than. So let's write a sentence interpreting that. Mr. Sellers was taller than 29.12% of men. That's what that means. Assume the average cholesterol level of 20 to 34-year-olds is 186 with a standard deviation of 37.2. It seems 200 milligrams per deciliter is the current cutoff for hypercholesterolemia. I think that's just high cholesterol. So what proportion of 20 to 34-year-olds have high cholesterol according to this standard? Well, let's find a z-score. Value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation gives me 0.38. Well, on my paper, that's closest to 0.4. So here we go. So now think about this, though. If that's the cutoff for high cholesterol, if you have a value lower than that, that doesn't mean you have high cholesterol. High cholesterol means you have a value higher than that. So if we look at our table, 0.4 gives me a proportion of 0.6554. So if we're talking about this side, I have to take 1 minus 0.6554, and that gives me a proportion of 0.3446. So that's the proportion. Roughly 34.46% of 20 to 34-year-olds have high cholesterol. Next paper, number 4. A brisk walk at 4 miles an hour burns an average of 300 calories an hour. If the standard deviation is 8 calories, find the probability that a person who walks 1 hour at 4 miles an hour will burn more than 320 calories. Okay, first, z-score. Value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation gives me a z-score of 2.5, roughly here. We want to know more than that. Well, that means area to the right. So if I look at my table, I get area to the left at 0.9938. So area to the right is 1 minus that, which is 0.0062, or roughly 0.62% will burn more than 320 calories. And the last one, the average annual consumption of ice cream per capita is 16.5 pounds in the U.S. That's a lot of stinking ice cream. If the standard deviation is 2.5 pounds, what proportion of the U.S. consumes more than 10 pounds a year? Z-score, value, minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. Okay, so that gives me a negative 2.6, roughly here. And again, we're looking more. So more is area to the right. Well, if I look at my table, the table gives me area to the left, which is 0.0047. So to find the area on the right, I subtract from 1, and I get 0.9953. So 99.5% of people eat more than 10 pounds of ice cream a year. That is crazy. I am not one of those people. Ice cream hurts my stomach, so I can't eat it. But anyway, it is what it is.